Imagine a man, an architect of a nation whose brilliant mind gave the world some of its most powerful words about human freedom. A man who wrote that all men are created equal, endowed with the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, imagine another man, a pragmatic plantation owner who, over the course of his life, held 600 other human beings in bondage. He bought and sold them, recorded them in his ledgers, and passed them down to his heirs, just like any other piece of property. The paradox is, this was the same man. His name was Thomas Jefferson. So how did the author of the American Creed become its greatest contradiction? Let's dive in. First, let's give the man his due. The Jefferson everyone knows and admires is a titan of the Enlightenment, a polyglot, scientist, architect, and the third president of the United States. His intellect was truly encyclopedic. His vision shaped the continent through the Louisiana Purchase, and he founded the University of Virginia as a bastion of reason. In 1776, when he was tasked, as one of the youngest delegates, with drafting the Declaration of Independence, he didn't just write a document. He created a moral compass for a new nation. Every line hummed with a revolutionary idea that power comes from the people, not a king. This is the Jefferson everyone knows and admires, a symbol of the ideals the nation still strives for. And if the story ended there, this would be a very short video. But as we know, monuments cast the longest shadows. To see the other Jefferson, you have to walk down the hill from his magnificent home, Monticello, and look at its foundation. And that foundation was built on slave labor. Monticello wasn't just a home. It was a sprawling, highly efficient machine powered by people, over 600 individuals throughout Jefferson's lifetime. Along its main artery, a street called Mulberry Row, enslaved blacksmiths, carpenters, and weavers worked from dawn till dusk, creating the wealth that funded Jefferson's life of intellectual pursuit. He wasn't a cruel master in the cinematic sense. He was more of a meticulous manager. In his famous farm books, he recorded everything with scientific precision: the pounds of nails produced, the cloth woven, the births, the deaths. To him, it was a system, an economy. A particularly telling detail is how he used the birth of enslaved children as a metric for his plantation's value, once writing to a friend that the birth of a child was worth more than the best adult male worker, as it represented a long-term capital investment. But behind the numbers were human beings. He wrote with great feeling about the evils of separating families, yet when his debts mounted, he sold people away from their husbands, wives, and children. He knew the pain it caused, and he did it anyway. And the deeper you dig, the more complex the paradox becomes. In his book, Notes on the State of Virginia, Jefferson writes that slavery is a moral and political evil. Then, just a few pages later, he puts forth pseudo-scientific theories about the biological inferiority of black people. It's as if his mind was desperately trying to build a fortress of justification around a truth his heart already knew. This led him to a chillingly logical conclusion in his mind, a policy of gradual emancipation followed by deportation. He simply could not imagine a multiracial republic. He believed that even if freed, black people would have to be sent away, perhaps to Africa or the Caribbean. His vision of liberty had a color guard.
And then, of course, there is the most difficult and personal part of his paradox: Sally Hemings, his wife's enslaved half-sister. Modern DNA analysis has all but confirmed that Jefferson fathered her 6 children, children who were born as his slaves and who served him in his own home. The most common defense you hear is, he was simply a man of his time. But was he? The answer, like the man himself, is complicated. In his youth, he did try to fight slavery. He proposed laws to limit its expansion. His first draft of the Declaration even included a passage blaming the British king for the slave trade, a passage other Southern delegates forced him to remove. He saw the hypocrisy with a clarity that many of his peers lacked. So what happened? Why the paralysis?
One of the reasons was, indeed, money. Jefferson inherited debt from his father-in-law and compounded it with a lavish lifestyle. His taste for fine French wines, his endless acquisition of books, the constant rebuilding of Monticello, it all plunged him deeper into a financial abyss. His human property was his collateral. To free them would have been financial suicide. But there was another factor: politics. Jefferson was the leader of a political party whose power base was the Southern planter class. To become an abolitionist would have meant alienating his entire political family. It would have been the end of his public life. He chose ambition and influence over moral action. His friend and rival George Washington was also a wealthy, indebted slaveholder. But he found a way. In his will, Washington freed all of his slaves. Jefferson did not. In his entire life, he only freed a handful of people, most of them members of Sally Hemings' family. In the end, the paradox of Thomas Jefferson is, in a way, the paradox of America itself. A nation conceived with the highest ideals of liberty and equality, yet built on the denial of those very things. Jefferson gave America its creed, but he was unable or unwilling to live by it himself. And yet the power of his words was so great that they became the very tool used to dismantle the world he helped build. Abolitionists in the 19th century, Abraham Lincoln at Gettysburg, and Martin Luther King Jr. on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, they all called upon the promise of the Declaration. They challenged America to live up to the words of a slaveholder. There is no easy answer here, no simple conclusion. You can't just cancel Jefferson and erase him from history. But you can't ignore the shadow he casts either. His life forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. Can great ideas be born from profound flaws? And how do we judge the people of the past, whose contradictions laid the groundwork for our present? So, what do you think? Was Jefferson a hypocrite or a tragic figure trapped in a system he both despised and depended on? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy complex stories over simple answers, subscribe to Presidential Paradoxes. There are many more mysteries to explore.